this video, I am going to be giving a brief introduction to circular graphs. Now, circular graphs we're going to treat a little bit differently to the way we've treated all our other graphs. So normally we have an equation and we want to see what it looks like when we try to graph it. With circular graphs, I'm going to go in the opposite direction. I've got a graph and I'd like to know what the equation is. So this here is a circular graph, and we do just mean a circle. It's that simple. So if I wanted to draw a circle on graph paper, I wanted an equation that would allow me to draw this circle. What would the equation be? So we're going to think through how this would work. And actually, we're going to find that oddly, we don't need to know anything about circles really. What we need to understand to do the equation of a circle is we need to understand triangles. Okay, so I'm just going to choose a random point on the circle, and I'm going to call it xy. That's what all of these random coordinates are. They're just xy. So, for instance, here we've got the coordinate 4, 0. That would be the coordinate where x is 4 and y is 0. So I'm just going to call this coordinate xy. And I'm going to try and label on some of the things I know about circles. So I know that this line is always really important in circles. This is the radius. The radius of the circle is always really important. It's how we find the area, circumference, it's all to do with the radius. And I'm going to call the radius r. Now with this radius, this line, I'm going to treat this as the hypotenuse of a triangle. Because I told you this is all about triangles. Nothing to do with circles really, it's all about triangles. So this is the hypotenuse of a triangle. And if I put in the other two lines, then here we have a right angle triangle where the hypotenuse is r. Now already I hope you're thinking, we know lots about right angle triangles. That would be helpful to us. In fact, this particular triangle we know a little bit more. I know what the height of the triangle must be. The height of the triangle is just from y equals 0 up to this y coordinate. So this height is y. In a similar argument, the width here is x, because we're going from 0 up to the x coordinate. So we've just labelled a triangle. We've made a triangle from the radius of the circle. Now we know a fact. We know quite a few facts actually, but we know one particularly important fact about right angle triangles. And this triangle in particular, we know Pythagoras' theorem. Now Pythagoras' theorem tells us that this side plus this side, this side squared plus this side squared is equal to this side squared. So that tells us that x squared plus y squared is r squared. Now what we could do here is we could change this around so it says y equals, because we're kind of used to graphs that say y equals, but actually we don't bother because it's a lot of effort and it doesn't actually help us. And what it would end up doing is it would end up getting us all confused about negatives, because we'd have to only have half a circle at a time and it'd get really confusing. So we don't bother with that. We just say x squared plus y squared equals r squared, and this is the equation of a circle with centre 0, 0. It's x squared plus y squared equals r squared. In fact, this particular circle, I can see that the radius is 4, because I can see that it's going from there to 4. So this particular circle is x squared plus y squared equals 4 squared. That's the equation of this circle. So if I see that equation, I know that it's a circle with radius 4 coming from the origin, coming from the point 0, 0. Okay, here's a different circle. Now notice that this time it's not the origin, it's a different coordinate in the center. But the same logic is pretty much going to help us here. I'm going to draw on my radius and I'm going to put on the random point xy. So even though I'm not starting at the origin, this all makes sense. Now what changes slightly is that I need to introduce a name for this center, because it's no longer just the 0, 0, it's going to be different each time. I'm going to call this AB. And generally when we talk about circles, we have our center of the circle is the coordinate AB. Now we're going to carry on the way we just did. We're going to draw in the triangle. And then we're going to have to think about this for a second. The width of the triangle is, well, this is the coordinate x here, so this would be length x. But actually we started at A. So we're going from A to X. That's not going to be a length X anymore. That's now going to be a length X minus A. Because you can see that going from here all the way to the end would have been X. So we haven't gone this length A. Right, so that side length is X minus A. The height is then Y minus B for exactly the same reason. This Y ordinate is Y. The whole distance would be Y, but we've not gone this B here. So it's Y minus B. And that gives us the general equation of a circle. X minus A squared plus Y minus B squared equals R squared. That is the equation of a circle in general. So you need to recognize this equation. And at the minute, that's really all I'm after. I'm not after you to be able to perfectly work with it. I'm not after you being able to plot circles or do anything fancy. I just need you to recognize it. So this particular circle that I've drawn is actually the circle x minus 1 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals 4 squared. I can see that because the radius of the circle is still 4. The center of the circle is 1, 1. So I've just put those numbers in. X minus 1 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals 4 squared. So if I were asked to plot the graph, x squared plus y squared equals 4, I know that because of the form, the center of the circle is 0, 0. So I can put that on. That is the center of the circle, 0, 0. I know that this 4 here is r squared, which means the radius has to be 2. So this is the circle, x squared plus y squared equals 4. And you can see how once I know the rules, this is actually quite a quick process. Okay, next one. Here I've got x minus 3 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals 1. I might be a little bit thrown off by that plus. That might confuse me a little bit, so I'm going to rewrite this equation instead. I'm going to change that plus 1 into a take away negative 1. Then I can proceed in exactly the same way as I was doing. So the center of my circle is going to be 3, negative 1. The radius, which is over here by the way, the radius is going to be, well, the square root of 1, which is 1. So I can draw my circle here with that center, with that radius, and that's what it looks like. Final example. If we've got x plus 1.5 squared plus y squared equals 9. Now again, I'm finding that quite hard to read, so I'm going to rewrite the equation a little bit into this form. X minus negative 1.5 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals 9. And I can just read out the center of the circle. The center of the circle is negative 1.5, 0. The radius of the circle is the square root of 9, which is 3. So I can draw my circle with radius 3 and center negative 1.5, 0. Okay, so the key points in this video. The equation of a circle is of the form x minus a squared plus y minus b squared equals r squared, where AB is the center of the circle and r is the radius.